Got it. We are live streaming our mastectomy tips workshop here on Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and record the session just so folks who can't join us live can still benefit from the awesome information we are getting ready to share. If you are joining us live right now on Facebook as we're streaming, feel free to like the post, share this post so others can see it, share that live stream, click that you want to be notified when we go live with all of these great tips and information about breast cancer and health and wellness related to breast cancer. I'm Kara Keenan. I'm sure lots of you are familiar with my face coming live to you. Joining me today on the live stream is Sophia Msara, and she is a public health intern at UNCW, and she's working with Going Beyond the Pink all summer long and doing an amazing job. Thanks for joining us, Sophia.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to get moving on this workshop here. Sophia is going to be joining me and keeping an eye out for your comments and questions. So if you're joining us live, definitely let us know if you have any comments or questions as we go along. Today, again, we're focusing on mastectomy recovery tips. So for those who don't know, when someone is diagnosed with breast cancer, often what happens is, excuse me, I'm fussing around with the settings here. Often what happens is they are facing some kind of surgery. It is rare that women and men who are diagnosed with breast cancer won't need to do some kind of surgery. So the choices are typically either a lumpectomy, which just removes the cancerous tissue and some surrounding tissue to get clean margins, or a mastectomy or bilateral mastectomy. And so the difference is a single mastectomy removes one of the breasts, and a bilateral mastectomy removes both of the breasts. And there are lots of reasons that women and men would choose to do one or the other types of surgery. But generally the goal is let's get the cancer out of the body. But there's a lot that goes along with this surgery that people don't often think about. And so we wanted to talk about that today and really get down into the nitty gritty about what you should be thinking of as you're preparing for the surgery. And we're focusing here on mastectomy because that's a little bit more involved in terms of drains and healing time and things like that. But it's not to say that people who choose lumpectomy won't still benefit from a lot of these tips. So even if lumpectomy was your option, definitely stick around and listen in. Or if you're getting ready to do either one of those surgeries, I'm sure that you'll find some helpful tips in here. And so what we've done is broken down this content into different areas, and we'll talk about each area separately. And then again, as you have questions or concerns, just jump on and post those in the comments. If you signed up in advance, you have the link to join us in the Zoom, and you're welcome to do that as well. But I'm just going to jump right in. So for women and men that are facing a mastectomy, one of the common concerns is thinking about clothing, right? What should I have on hand to wear after surgery and in the weeks afterward for healing? So one thing you need to understand is that while a lumpectomy just removes a certain kind of smaller area, depending on the size of the tumor, a mastectomy removes all of the breast tissue, right? And so you're generally looking at scars, and I'm never shy here, so I'll talk about it, right? The scars are typically about from here to about here. So you're going kind of into that armpit area. And if you're doing a bilateral mastectomy, then that's on both sides, right? So this surgery definitely affects kind of all of that musculature and everything in this area. You'll lose a lot of the nerve sensation. You won't be able to feel a lot in that area, which is kind of a benefit in a way because the healing process isn't necessarily as painful as it might be otherwise. Because a lot of those nerves are cut through. However, over time they will regenerate, and that's its own fun story on its own with the burning and shooting pains that can come along with that. But in terms of the actual procedure and then healing from that surgery. You're typically dealing with very long incisions, and it makes it hard to do certain motions and movements that you don't necessarily pay attention to when you haven't had a surgery like that, right? So things like lifting your arms up and down or reaching out, doing kind of cross motions like this, and then normal things like putting clothing on, right? Those movements are going to pull at those incisions. So you want to make sure that you're choosing clothing that is really stretchy, easy on, easy off, and then thinking about fabrics too. You want comfortable, soft fabrics, natural materials. So cotton is definitely the best way to go, and breathable materials, because you don't want to create an environment between your body and the clothing that could potentially help bacteria grow, or that would likely cause an infection. So some of the clothing options that we like to talk about are button or zip front tops and pajamas, right? Because you're going to be in comfy clothes during this time frame, right? You want to have sweatpants or easy on leggings or loose fitting jeans, even just anything that's going to be really comfortable. Make sure if you're not going barefoot around your house as you're recovering, you want to get socks with those little grippies. I love, my mom calls it gription. And so gription has stuck. You want to have that kind of gription on the bottom, right? So that if you're a little woozy from medication or you're not feeling really strong, we don't want to see you like slip and fall during that time, right? Because that would really complicate things and we don't want anybody to get hurt. So just thinking about simple things like that can really be useful. Again, focus on loose and comfortable clothing, soft clothing, and then make sure that you've got a couple of safety pins, just your basic safety pins around the house. Because if you're having a mastectomy, you're going to come home with JP drains, which are those drains that kind of hang out of your body, that pull that fluid that your body's creating at the surgical site. It pulls it out to help you heal more quickly. And so you're going to want to be able to use safety pins to kind of pin those drains to the surgical bra that your physician supplies you with. The other little tip here to walk away with is you absolutely want to be making sure that you ask your surgeon if you can have a second bra, because you're going to be in that bra for at least 2 weeks, if not longer. And you're really going to want at some point to wash that bra because you're going to start feeling icky in it. So it's always good if you have a second one that you can put on while you're washing the other, and you can just kind of swap back and forth, right? Having that second bra is really, really useful. Because again, you're going to be wearing it for a long time. And those surgical bras are designed in a specific way that they're going to hold the reconstructed breast tissue in a way, or if you're not getting reconstruction, right, it's going to be kind of a flat surface and they'll give you a different type of compression garment. You always want to have an extra one there. How are we doing, Sophia? Anybody asking questions about clothing or anything yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, awesome. All right, so those are our hot tips for post-mastectomy clothing. Again, that's going to be, thinking about loose, stretchy, cotton kind of fabrics, things that are easy on, easy off, buttons, zips, snap fronts, things like that, and making sure you get that extra bra. Now, again, you're going to be spending a lot of time recovering, right? A week or 2 weeks where you're going to spend a lot of time resting your body, right? Getting enough sleep so that your body can do that hard work of healing. So the next thing I want to talk about is going to be kind of your sleeping environment and your bedding. So number one, when you're coming home from surgery and you have open wounds on your body, even though they're covered, one of the first things you want to be thinking about is not getting any kind of infection or bacteria in or around those wounds. So wherever it is that you're going to be doing the majority of your recovering, whether that's in a chair, on a sofa, in a bed, you want to make sure that the sheets and the fabrics that you're laying on are clean. So clean, fresh sheets right before you leave for surgery, so that when you come home, you don't have to worry about kind of remaking the bed and doing all that pulling and stretching that you're not going to be able to do. and that you have nice clean sheets to, snuggle up into as you are healing. So that's going to be a huge priority, and making sure to, do a good cleaning of the house and things like that, which I think that we talk about again later in this video. The other thing you really want to be thinking about are pillows. Lots of different shapes and sizes of pillows can be super helpful when you're recovering. Things like body pillows, wedge pillows, those husband pillows with the arms, any kind of pillows you can be putting around you, unless you're already a back sleeper, and most of the people I talk to are either side or belly sleepers. You can't sleep on your belly or your sides when you're recovering from a mastectomy. Because you can't be putting the pressure and your body weight on those incisions. So you're going to need to sleep on your back. And whatever you can do to kind of create that pillow fort kind of feel, to create kind of, just a fort around you of pillows that can help lift you up and keep you from rolling over onto your sides or your belly. Really, really helpful. So be thinking about those wedge pillows, body pillows, husband pillows, whatever you have around the house. Again, if they have removable covers, I would definitely wash them before you use them, or put new pillow covers and things like that on there so that they're nice and clean, because again, you're going to spend a lot of time close to those pillows. The other thing is you want to have a variety of other size pillows that you can wedge in spots. So to fill the gaps between your body and the pillow fort you create. We have like heart-shaped pillows that we often give out, or rectangular pillows that you can put underneath the armpit to protect, because where the arm is going to be hitting the side of the breast, that's very tender. Remember, the incision goes deep into that area. So having smaller pillows to kind of stick around in those spaces when you're sitting around or laying around is very helpful. And also thinking about a pillow to have and keep in your car for when you're going back and forth to those follow-up appointments, or for when you're coming home from surgery. In our care bags, we include I'm not sure if you can see it with the foamy stuff, but we include the seatbelt pillow that has this piece of Velcro across the back that helps you secure it to a seatbelt. It's nice and tiny. The American Sewing Guild, the local chapter, makes a lot of these for us. And so we're really grateful for them for doing that. These little pillows are a true lifesaver, particularly in the car, but you can again use them at home, sticking in all of those tender places as well. But definitely just keeping that seatbelt off of your chest, especially when you're coming home. You don't want anything too big or bulky that's going to get in the way of the effectiveness of the seatbelt. So no huge pillows, but just some kind of cushion between your body and that seatbelt is definitely useful when you're hitting those bumps and things along the way on your way home, and then back and forth to your follow-up appointments. All right, we're wrapping up on the pillows and the bedding, and we've talked about clothing. So next up, we are going to talk about hygiene. What kinds of things do you need for thinking about showering, keeping clean, taking care of your hair? There's all sorts of things that come up, and both from my own experience and from working with hundreds and hundreds of breast cancer patients and survivors along the way, I'm going to share with you some of the best tips we've come up with. Number one is, again, you're going to come home from surgery with those drains. Most people end up having 4 drains coming out of their body, 2 on either side. And the drains are literally going to be kind of like a long tube with a bulb at the end, and that bulb is what collects the fluid coming out of your body. And what's underneath, under your skin, is kind of like a wick, right? So it's going to absorb any excess fluid that would keep that surgical site from healing. It's going to pull it down the tube and then into that bulb. And it's going to be your job to empty that bulb and measure the fluid and be able to report that back to your surgeon so they know how well your body's healing and how soon they can take out those drains. Now, I know the drains sound atrocious, and they really are very uncomfortable. But when I tell you that the whole process of healing is probably a lot easier than what you're imagining in your mind, it's not to say it's easy. And it can be really challenging, especially if you have any kinds of complications. But for the most part, doctors have a really good grip on things like how much pain medication to give you and how long you'll be in pain and all of those things. But you don't often get these tips for things like how to deal with the JP drains and what do I do with them when I'm going to shower. Because as you can imagine, during the day, you'll have your surgical bra on and you'll have all 4 drains clipped to that bra. So you're hands-free. But you don't want to wear the surgical bra into the shower, right? You want to be able to clean your whole body and do things like wash your hair. So you need to have your hands free. But what do you do with those surgical drains if they're hanging from your body? You're not going to let them just hang there with the weight and that'll hurt. So the best piece of advice is this lovely lanyard. Really simple. You see them everywhere. We include them in our care bags as well. And you're literally just going to take that lanyard, pop it around your neck, just like it's supposed to go. And then you take those safety pins that you normally use to clip the drains onto the surgical bra, and you just clip the safety pins right there to the end of the lanyard. And that helps to hold them and hold the weight of them so they're not pulling at you in the shower, and then you have hands free. So it's another fantastic little tip and trick, right, to get you through so that you can shower and start to feel normal again, because that's so necessary. Excuse me a second. All this talking, y'all. Sophia, any questions or comments coming in yet? I think people are on their lunch breaks and just kind of watching us. I can see everybody watching us on there.
No, but I have a question. So concerning shampoo and conditioner, what kinds would you be looking for after? Because does it change?
So that is a fantastic question, and it has lots of different answers. The one thing we like to draw your attention to is our personal care products are full of dyes and perfumes and chemicals and parabens and all of these things that absorb through our skin and affect our endocrine system, right? And your endocrine system is important when you're healing. It's important all the time, right? But when you're healing from a major surgery, you don't really want to be putting a lot of extra burden on to the systems in your body that help you to function, right? That help keep your cells running at their best healing capacity. So at the very least, I always recommend that you look for products that don't contain parabens, dyes, and perfumes. There's a really fantastic tool that the Environmental Working Group puts out, and it's called the Healthy Living app. And you can download that on your phone right now. That app allows you to scan products, but it also allows you to put in, like, say you're going shopping for shampoo. You can just put shampoo, and it will list a lot of the common brands that you're going to see in the stores, and it ranks them, color codes it even to make it easy for you in terms of the chemicals that are in them. So you can make great choices in your price range without having to worry about any particular certain brands or anything, or having to spend a ton of money on natural products. There are great options, and the app lets you make choices because it'll tell you if it's got, like, if it comes up red, it's going to tell you all of the different chemicals that are in that product and why it's ranking it as a red, as a no-go, right? If it comes up green, it's going to show you, what it doesn't have and all the, the great products that are in it. So you really can find effective products that aren't going to be a detriment to you. It gets overwhelming and it can get kind of expensive. So I always just say, like, as you're going to replace the items that you use that app to help you pick out new and better things that aren't going to have those dyes and perfumes and parabens in there. But in terms of recovery for mastectomy, that would be the only thing. And, since we're talking about shampoos and dyes and perfumes and parabens, we might as well talk about soaps and lotions, right? Any of those products that you're putting on your body during or after when you shower, anything like that, you're going to want to run through that app so that you can really see, what you're putting in there. And that's another thing that we include in our care bags are soaps and moisturizing lotions for your body that don't have all of those chemicals in there that are endocrine disruptors. So, definitely be using those products. Things like handmade oatmeal soap. Locally, we source from a wonderful handcrafted business called Clary Hollow. And she's right here in Leland, North Carolina. And she makes sure to make all of her products without any of those harsh chemicals and perfumes and things. It's all natural products that help you get really great use. So check out Clary Hollow for sure. definitely use the products that are in your care bag. And we have that Products We Love page and our Shop Pink Facebook group. So if you're looking for other recommendations around specific products that are great to use, make sure to jump on our website or join that Facebook group for all of that added stuff. We make it nice and easy for you to click on a link and get the stuff you love. Thanks for that question, Sophia. That's fantastic. Okay, so lanyards, soaps and lotions, and shampoos we've talked about. Next up, I want to talk to you about a tip that I read about all the time, but I really struggle with this one, guys. Some of you might hear a tip that when you come home from a mastectomy and you have these wounds, they're going to give you some pads, like post-surgical pads, to absorb any leakage or anything like that, and to provide some cushioning between your skin and the surgical bra. Lots of folks talk about using menstrual pads instead of those pads, and it's because they have that adhesive back that usually adheres to your panties. Well, instead of adhering it there, you would adhere it inside the bra, and it could just, cover that area and give you a little cushion. And it seems like a really brilliant tip and trick. But what I want you to understand about those menstrual pads is that they use chemicals to help draw that moisture away from that top layer, which is great because it gets the moisture away from your body. But those are not chemicals that I would want to put up against open, wounded skin that's trying to recover from surgery. So unless you're using a 100% natural, pure cotton kind of menstrual pad, I'm going to give it the big X and say, please don't use menstrual pads instead of the post-surgical kind of pads that you need to use, those kind of first aid pads that they'll give you some at the hospital, and you'll probably need to pick up some more at home. But again, stay away from the chemicals, guys. Your body doesn't need to do more work to clear harmful chemicals out of your body while it's trying to heal from probably one of the most dramatic, traumatic events that it's gone through. So let's treat our bodies well and kind of avoid those chemicals, okay? Getting back to, so Sophia, you mentioned shampoos and conditioners, but one thing I completely forgot to talk about was just the process of actually washing your hair. So if you can imagine, you come home from a mastectomy and you've got, wounds, incisions from here to here, possibly on both sides of your body. That area is really tender, and moving your body is not going to feel the same right away, right? Because you wouldn't believe how much you engage the muscles of your chest and your abdomen when you're doing simple things like sitting up to get out of bed, or getting up out of a chair, or going to reach for your coffee mug or whatever, right? You use that and you're going to feel it. It's going to feel, pulling and maybe a little bit of discomfort and pain. And so you can imagine being in the shower and trying to raise your arms up to, wash your hair and help rinse your hair, and all of that motion, that's not going to feel good. So here are my recommendations around hair washing while you're recovering from surgery. Number one is, if you're washing your hair at home, if you've got a sink at home that has like a sprayer or has more space between the faucet and the sink itself, like a kitchen sink is usually a good option. I recommend, washing your hair there, because I'm going to do this. Don't laugh at me. You're going to flip your hair, right? And your hands are going to be closer to your body. So you can still kind of be in that protective stance here and not worry about doing a lot of pulling and moving of those incisions. So washing your hair in the sink, gosh, I must look like a mess. But washing your hair in the sink can be really, really helpful. Or if there's one of your caregivers that's around that's willing to kind of help you with that. I don't recommend doing the from the behind, because you'll often have to arch your back and that's going to pull here. So doing the flipped head, washing in the sink is a great option. Another great option would be, if you regularly see a hairdresser, to just talk with them if they're willing to do some extra tweaks in terms of like helping you wash your hair, or letting you come in once or twice a week just to get your hair washed and blown out. And if they're not willing to do that for like a discount, or to just kind of hook you up because you've been spending a lot of time with them, during your lifetime of going and get your hair done, You can also just go into any one of those like walk-in hairdressing places like a Quick Cuts or Hot Cuts or whatever all those places are, right? You can walk into there and usually for around $10 or $12, you can just go in and get your hair washed and blown out if you're not getting a cut. Those, getting it done with a hairdresser is nice, because they're doing all the work. And so you're not having to move your arms and stuff around, but they also have those lovely chairs that can kind of lean back and they help with that motion. So you're not having to pull so much every time you sit up and get up. Right. So that's a nice way to, to get around the whole hair thing. And if you're listening and you're trying to think of things that you can do, as a gift or to support someone who is recovering from a mastectomy, getting them, just a gift certificate to a hair place to get their hair washed and blown out is a lovely idea. Take some of that burden off. It helps them feel a little pampered, and it just really helps because no one wants to sit around as they're healing and feel gross and dirty all the time, right? So definitely, doing something along those lines is going to be helpful. And then the last thing I want to talk about in terms of hygiene really has more to do with those drains that I was talking about before. So if you'll remember, you're going to have the drains kind of hanging out of your body, and there's a tube and a bulb. Well, that tube, so you're supposed to empty the bulb every couple of hours and write down like the time and how many fluid ounces of the liquid comes out, right? And then you kind of close the bulb back up and let it keep doing its work. And that helps the surgeon to understand how much fluid your body's making so they can determine when is the best time to remove the drains, right? Well, something that my husband and I discovered as we were going through this, and we've offered this as a recommendation lots of times. And Sophia, maybe after our live stream is up, maybe we can grab that link for the video that shows this whole process of stripping the drains. It's on our YouTube page, but we'll pop that link in the comments here. But that process of stripping the drains, they don't really teach it to you when you're in the hospital, right? They just want you to be able to like get up and drink and eat something and make sure that you're, safe enough to go home, because they don't want you hanging around in the hospital. Everybody knows we heal better when we're at home. So in that kind of rush to get you home, nobody's really showing you how to strip the drain. So we've got this great video where I show you with an actual drain how you do that process of stripping the drain. But here, for talking about post-mastectomy tips, one of the things that you're going to want to make sure you have on hand is some kind of oil. I like coconut oil just because it intrinsically has antibacterial and antimicrobial properties. So if you're going to be around open wounds, something that has those properties is probably pretty safe to have. So a little bit of coconut oil, which you can get at any grocery store, and just a pen, any kind of, smooth round pen like that, because you'll see in that other video where you use the pen and a little bit of oil on top of it to put pressure along that tube, which helps to pull anything that's getting stuck in that tube into the bulb. And it helps to, pull that fluid out. And it just really makes that process easier and more effective. And the more effective you can be at draining, the faster you can get rid of those stinking drains, because nobody likes them. They're just not fun, guys. Okay. All right. Looks like we've got even more folks joining us. So before I move on, so far we've talked about clothing, bedding, sleeping arrangements, and various things related to hygiene right after you come home and are healing from a mastectomy. We've still got so much more to talk about, but before I move on, if anyone has questions, comments, tips of your own that you want to share, please be putting them in the comments on the post here. We are streaming this live to Facebook, but that stays on in our videos long after this live stream. So we can definitely keep getting back to your comments and questions, and you can help share your tips and tricks with others as they're preparing for this surgery as well. Sophia, any other comments or questions as we're moving along?
Not yet.
Great. All right. Thanks for keeping an eye on that. Gosh, it's so helpful. All right, here we go. So next up, let's talk about meals. Now, all right, I don't want to get all stereotypical, but let's face it. Usually it's the woman in the household that's going to do a lot of that kind of work around the house, right? We're the nurturers. we do a lot of the planning and preparing of meals and things like that. So whatever that looks like in your home, whether it's you or if it's your primary caregiver, right? If it's your spouse or partner that does most of that meal prep and thoughtfulness about, grocery shopping and things like that, work together before you go into surgery to figure out what you need to have on hand, because post-surgery, you're not going to want to be going grocery shopping, which again is, pushing carts and picking and pulling things off of shelves. And a lot of the motions and lifting of things that are involved in cooking, it's not something you're going to want to do as you're recovering. Now, the great thing is if you have a really good support network locally that can help you, a lot of the times the one thing people want to do for you is prepare and bring by a meal. Love that. It can be really amazing. And there's a great online resource called mealtrain.com where you can actually set it up and tell people the foods that you like to eat, the foods that you don't like to eat, your preferences around drop-offs, whether you want them to stay and visit, or if you prefer they just drop off and go or leave it at the door, the times you would prefer the drop-offs to happen. All of that kind of logistics information can happen right there on the meal train. And then it creates a calendar with a link, and you can just share that link on your social media, and your friends and family can just pick a day that they're going to bring. That way you don't get a lot of overlap. You don't get too many meals where it gets to be out of hand. It's a really, really great way to deal with the logistics of all of those meal drop-offs and things like that from your amazing support network. So mealtrain.com, definitely check that out. And it's a free resource, so really amazing there. Things to think about, if you have like a faith network, a church or synagogue or something that you go to, where people there are going to want to be supportive of you, that's a great thing to ask for, is meals and meal prep. When you're thinking about foods, obviously think about the things that you love to eat, but also remember that your body is going to be, again, in a really significant healing phase. So you want to be packing in nutrients as much as possible. So lots of fiber-rich and protein-rich foods are really going to be what helps you in that healing process. Protein and fiber is exactly what your body's going to need for healing. So lean meats, beans, lentils, things like that are high in protein and fiber, right? All of the veggies, lots of veggies and lots of fruits along the way are going to be really, really helpful. But another thing you're going to want to think about is thinking about the fruits and veggies that cause gas and bloating, or foods that cause constipation, because as you're recovering again, everything that kind of pulls in this area, you're not going to want, right? Because this is going to be a really tender area. So avoiding foods that cause gas, bloating, or constipation is going to be really, really important. Not to mention that the pain medications they give you also cause constipation. So thinking about taking just kind of like a prophylactic gentle laxative, like a Colace every day while you're healing, can also help address any constipation issues. So again, that's protein, fiber. Do as much pre-shopping and pre-prep of food or freezing foods beforehand as you can. Use that mealtrain.com to help organize all the logistics of food drop-offs and things like that. And then last, but certainly not least, is your body needs water. So suck it up, Buttercup. I don't want to hear that you don't like water. Your body needs fluids that are not full of sugar and not full of caffeine as you are healing. So drink a ton of water in the days that you're healing. It's going to help with the constipation. It's going to help with bloating. It helps literally every single cell in your body do the work it needs to do. It's going to help your body clear the anesthesia faster. It helps support your liver as it's doing the work for getting through any toxins and things in your body. Water, 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 water. What'd I say? Water. And a little trick to help you get more water is to always have a water cup nearby. Know your preference. Maybe you like your water room temperature warm. Maybe you like it cold with ice. But regardless, stick a straw in there. When you drink through a straw, it helps you to drink more with every single sip. So straws really help. If you don't want to use plastic straws for environmental reasons, definitely, metal straws, silicone straws, glass straws. There's actually a really awesome company in Southport, North Carolina, that makes glass straws that you can even etch. Another great gift idea if you are looking for a gift for someone who's about to go through mastectomy surgery, right? Water, 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 and drink through a straw. All right, that's our next section. We've still got like 3 more sections to go because there's so much information to talk about here. I'm going to check in real quick again. Do we have any questions or comments about meals as we're moving forward?
No, not yet.
Thanks, Sophia. I just want to point out water. Sorry, it's in a plastic cup, but water. Okay, let's move on to cleaning. Again, I know I mentioned earlier when we were talking about sleep and bedding, right? You want to make sure that your environment is really clean when you're coming home from a surgery. It's really amazing how much we touch things in our environment and then touch ourselves. I think that's probably one thing we all learned pretty well during the pandemic, right? Is how much we touch our face and we touch our body and we're touching other things. So making sure you're doing a lot of hand washing, keep hand sanitizer around. People are coming to visit you, make sure they're using hand sanitizer too. But doing a good deep clean of your house prior to surgery is really going to be important, both so that your environment is clean that you're coming home to, so you're less likely to get any kind of bacterial infections, kind of cross-touching infections, those kinds of things. Because, when you're healing and you're talking about mastectomy, we do a lot of this touching of our breast area without even realizing, right? I joke at how much when I'm talking about breast cancer, I'm actually touching my breasts. So we do that when we're recovering from surgery, and you don't want to be touching things all around your home and then touching around where your incisions are or the clothing around your incisions, and then accidentally introducing some kind of bacteria or infection. So a nice clean house is a really great thing to have going into it. Another thing is your support network. They might be asking for things that they can do to help. And it's hard sometimes to ask for that help or to even know what to ask for. So I want to go ahead and recommend to you that one of the things that you can ask your really close friends and family members who are looking to help you for is to help with cleaning tasks after surgery. So asking someone to come in once a week in a couple of weeks after your surgery to maybe vacuum your house, because that motion of using the vacuum you can't do. Or if you happen to have a robot vacuum, I mean, that even is a great option post-surgery, right? But tasks like that, doing laundry where you're doing a lot of pushing and pulling of things in and out of machines, or using that vacuum cleaner, or trying to dust things up high, those are not motions that you're going to be doing right after surgery. It's going to take some time for you to heal before you can do that comfortably without doing any damage to the healing that's going on in your body. And remember, even when those outer incisions are healed, mastectomy surgery goes deep through many layers of the tissue. And so there's lots of layers underneath that have to heal as well. So it does take a few weeks. So asking people to help you clean, things like the standard tasks, right? Vacuuming, laundry, take some of that pressure off of the caregivers that are in your home with you and tending to your needs all the time, can be really helpful for you and for them, because they're also dealing with a lot. And then the other thing I want to mention is there's a great other organization out there called Cleaning for a Reason. Google them up or do cleaningforareason.org. I know locally we have several different home cleaners that provide that service for free to someone who is going through treatment for breast cancer. Cleaning for a Reason is an amazing organization, and they use all of their support to make sure that someone can come in and clean your home when you can't. So it's a great option. And also, as a little heads up, we've got an awesome blog coming out about Cleaning for a Reason and a community partnership with someone locally who provides that service. So be on the lookout on our social media for those posts. And remember, Cleaning for a Reason can help keep your home clean so that you have less work to do while you're doing the hard work of healing. All right. Other stuff that we want to be thinking about.
We do have a question.
Oh, hit me up. What do we got?
Does it matter which water, alkaline, electrolytes, and sports drinks can they drink?
That's That's really, really great. So the true answer is no. Um, what you want to be doing is just making sure your body's getting plenty of fluid. There's a lot of debate out there when it comes to alkaline waters or smart waters or enhanced waters and things like that. And what your physicians would tell you and what I'll encourage you to know is that the water is the key. If you have unique needs for your own body or your own diet, certainly consider those, because drinking like an alkaline water or an enhanced water isn't going to hurt you. If for some reason you're drinking something like a distilled water or water that has been through reverse osmosis processing, you do want to make sure that the minerals that your body needs are reintroduced back into the water. And that can be something where some of those sports drinks come in and can be helpful, because you don't, if your body's losing minerals, you're going to start getting kind of dizzy feeling or not feel steady on your feet. You might feel nauseous. None of those things that you want to deal with when you're healing from a mastectomy. So the real answer to that is no, but, right? Any types of water will be helpful. You don't need any specific kind, but you know your own personal needs better around those things. So if you know you need electrolytes or you're following an alkaline diet or any of those kinds of things, then you can pursue those for your own particular needs. And that's always an area too, where I always want to bring in the caveat of ask your physician if they have any preferences around that as well. But outside of that, just good, clean water. That's all your body needs to heal. Thanks for that question. That's really awesome. All right. Since we're talking about being in the kitchen anyway, I want to talk to you about, after the first few days when you start to kind of want to get back to a little bit more normalcy, maybe some of your caregivers that are there 24/7 are now going back to work or leaving the home or doing things like that, and you're going to have some time on your own. One of the things I want to recommend to you is you go into your kitchen, because that's one of the areas of the home where we do a ton of reaching and grabbing and pulling and pushing. And you also do this in your closet, but look around at the things that you might normally need to use in a day. And wherever they are in your kitchen, bring them right onto your countertop at your arm's level, right within easy reach. Because the last thing you want is for all of your caregivers to be off doing their things and you're in the kitchen by yourself. And I don't know, in my case, it was I was desperate for a cup of coffee and I made the coffee and then I realized that my mugs were way up high and how was I going to get to them, right? So you don't want to end up putting yourself in any kind of precarious situation or doing any damage to where all of that wound healing is going on. So just look around your environment and think about all those things that you would normally need to reach and pull and push and whatever to have and make them really, really handy. The other thing I know I mentioned it just a moment ago was stock up on groceries prior to surgery so that you're not having, even in like the week or two after, you don't want to have to leave your home and have to do a lot of, again, pushing carts, grading things off of shelves and things like that. So, and like lifting of the grocery bags and all of that kind of stuff. And another big one, and this can be a hot spot for some, no smoking. Right before surgery and post-surgery, as your body is healing, the chemicals and things and ingredients in tobacco products are going to affect blood flow and wound healing. So I'm not sitting here in judgment of you. Of course, smoking cessation is incredibly important to reduce your cancer risk, but focusing specifically on healing after a mastectomy, no smoking, because it will affect your body's ability to heal in that area. Have a back scratcher on hand. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice, folks. Have a back scratcher on hand because, again, you're going to get the itch and you're going to want to get to it. And doing this kind of stuff, it just, it's not going to happen. Having a telescoping back scratcher on hand is a lifesaver. I'll tell you, 8 years ago, I got mine, and it still to this day sits on my bedside table because it's so useful anyway. Excuse me. Entertainment. Ooh, pardon me, guys. Give me just a minute here to clear my throat. Ooh, doesn't that always happen at the worst time? We're going to go with the flow. I'm a human too, right? So back scratcher is necessary. The next thing you're going to want is have some entertainment kind of ready to go, right? Healing from a mastectomy can take 2, 3, 4 weeks at home, depending on how your body responds. And you're going to have a lot of time sitting around doing nothing and not working, right? So a list of great TV shows to binge watch, or movies to watch, podcasts to listen to. I love how podcasts are just taking off, and there's so many choices out there. You can learn and listen to just about anything, all for free. Great podcast apps out there on your Apple, your Android phones, whichever. There's lots of options, even on your computer. So lots of shows, movies, podcasts, other things, books, magazines, favorite games on your smartphone, whatever's going to help you pass the time and focus on something other than what your body's going through can really be great just for your mindset, right? To get you thinking about different things. I'll put a plug in here for our education hub. We have TED Talks and podcasts already picked out and linked for you on some really great things that will inspire you, bring you hope, and help you learn about your health and wellness and about breast cancer that you can focus on while you are healing, and it helps to keep you busy. Another thing you want to have handy is going to be a notebook and a pen, or some kind of like printable tracker or something like that, to help you keep track of things like when you're taking which medications, because they all have different timing around them. And then also for tracking that output of your JP drains and how much fluid is coming out. A lot of the times the doctors will provide you with a drain output tracking sheet, but they don't necessarily provide you something with like a medicine tracker. Those are all things that we have on our education hub and as downloadables. If you want something like that right now, put it in the comments and we'll make sure to send it to you right here on social media. But those are really great things to have those trackers handy. Also, a notebook and pen just for writing notes or recording your thoughts about this experience. It can be really moving to have that to refer back to later on, and you can use it to help others later as well who might be also going through this journey. So notebook and pen is great for that. And of course, you know, I'm a big fan of gratitude journaling and practicing gratitude in general. So having that notebook around when something inspires you, because yes, even when you've just gone through a mastectomy and you're facing a breast cancer diagnosis and treatment, there are always things that you can find to be grateful for. And remembering to write those down and focus on those really can help your mindset and your healing as you're moving forward. So change your focus, change the game entirely. Gratitude helps. Having a notebook and pen around for that, just easy to grab and go, really, really can help you kind of make that a practice. We talked about pillows for the cars and the seatbelt pillows and stuff like that. The next one on my list here really makes me laugh right now, just because I was just all coffee and getting dry throat, right? But cough drops. When you go through surgery for mastectomy, they're going to put that intubation tube down your throat. And for lots of people, that can be irritating, right? It can dry out your throat. Sometimes the tube edges like bang around in your throat. And so having cough drops handy so that you have something to kind of soothe your throat is really great. I prefer natural ones. I love those, like Ricola ones, something low in sugar, doesn't have a lot of fake sugar substitutes. That kind of stuff is a great option, but cough drops to have on hand, and lots of water. Remember that water. Another thing that gets dry a lot after surgery, things like your skin, but we often forget about our lips. So keep some chapstick handy. It's always nice to have that around, especially if you're like me and you do a ton of talking. You need to have your chapstick at all times. I've got one in like every room in my car and purse. You'll have purse chapsticks and car chapsticks, and yeah, we're all there. Maybe it's a sign of aging, who knows? And then the last recommendation that we see a lot is having a recliner for sleeping. I know I mentioned that when we talked about sleeping in sheets and all of that kind of stuff. That one's not always feasible for everybody, right? That can be an expensive thing if you don't already have it on hand. There are some rental places where you can get a recliner, just kind of like the furniture rental places, or some of the medical supply providers will have those kinds of recliners. Sometimes you might find like insurance that'll cover it, but it's not often. So usually that's an expense that you have on your own. Maybe you can borrow one from a friend who has one or something like that. But having the recliner can be helpful, again, just because it helps with that whole notion of getting up and you don't have to rely on your own muscles to do it so much as you're healing. And it can just be more convenient to be, in one space, for most of those first early days, at least when you're healing. So definitely something to think about would be a recliner. I've personally healed from surgeries doing both. And honestly, I mean, I see the recliner having benefits with that, getting up part, but outside of that, there's really not much of a difference. So pick what's comfortable for you. I think that wraps it up. So I know people do mention things like fiber supplements to help encourage those bowel movements, Metamucil, Benefiber, those kinds of things, milk of magnesia. The big thing you want to remember when it comes to dealing with constipation is you want something gentle. So look on the packaging for whatever you choose to make sure it moves your bowels in a gentle way, because the last thing you need is something that's going to all of a sudden trigger you to have to go and make your muscles do a lot of that contracting and stuff. So Colace tends to be the most popular option. And then just making sure you're packing your diet full of that good fiber, right? So making sure you're getting, what is it, like 5 to 10 grams of fiber a day or something like that is really, really good to help keep those bowels moving and kind of counteract all of the slowing down that surgery and pain medications make happen when you're recovering. And then always make sure that you are talking with your physician about expectations around things like pain medicine. Make sure that when you go in, you bring a current list of all of your existing medications and the dosages and when you take what, so that that can be reviewed. Your doctor will likely give you a very long list of things you can't take the week before surgery. Don't forget any kind of herbal supplements or other kinds of supplements that you may be taking or using, to improve your diet. They can have effects that will affect how your body metabolizes medicine and anesthesia and all of those things. So that's a really, really, really important conversation to have, and make sure that you're well informed and you don't go and just go, oh, I forgot about this medicine, I forgot about that. Take the time to document everything before you go in and meet with your doctor, so that you can have a really safe surgery and recovery. All right, any last minute comments or questions from the crowd or from you, Sophia?
I do have one regarding, are you sensitive to weight after you get surgery?
To weightlifting?
Like to lifting heavy objects, such as like a gallon of milk or laundry detergent or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really great thing to bring up. So immediately after surgery, within the first week, you're not going to be allowed to lift anything. I think it's either 2 pounds or 5 pounds, right? So pretty much anything that's not super lightweight, somebody else is going to have to lift and carry for you. As the healing process goes on and as the weeks go on, the amount of weight that you're allowed to hold increases steadily. But again, because those incisions are so deep and go through so many layers, just because that outer incision has healed doesn't mean the whole work of healing has been done. So absolutely making sure to talk with your surgeon about how much weight and when is okay is really, really important. It's generally included in your surgical instructions that they send you home with. So making sure to read those thoroughly and ask any questions about it, and have your caregiver read it as well, because you may not be totally clear in remembering things. But really focusing on how much weight bearing you can do is really, really important in that post-mastectomy recovery time. For fitness buffs and people that like to do any kind of workout related to anything where there's like punching, hitting, lifting, stretching, all of that, you're going to be very, very limited in the immediate weeks after surgery. And you're going to need to wait for your surgeon to give you clearance to do that kind of work. And another thing that comes up, at least in the first week or two after surgery, is driving. You're going to need someone available to drive you to appointments and things like that, and to the store and whatever you need in the first couple of weeks. And your physician is going to want to clear you for driving because, number one, pain medications you can't drive on. Usually there's some heavy hitters in the first couple of days at least. But then also because of the incisions and the deep healing going on, The fear is around having to stop short or getting into an accident or something like that, where it could do damage. Just this past Monday, I was rear-ended suddenly at a stoplight, right? And that happens. It wasn't a big deal. It was a very little thing. But had I been, just a week out from surgery and had a seatbelt going across my chest that has, is healing, has reconstruction, maybe has implants, that kind of an impact means an emergency room visit, right? So really thinking about just kind of staying home as much as you can, not being in situations where you could get into accidents, and definitely not being the driver in situations like that. It's going to be really important. Great questions. All right, everyone. Well, that is all of our hot tips and tricks for your mastectomy recovery timeframe. Thanks for hanging out with us here. It's been a packed hour of really great information. Appreciate you sticking around. If you're not watching this live and you're watching this after the fact, make sure you're pausing and taking notes and getting all that stuff down. And if you are out there and you've gone through this and you want to share your recovery tips and tricks with us, make sure that you are putting it in the comments below to share with everyone as well. Thanks so much for being out there.